Hello and welcome back to the Morningscape podcast, brought to you by Puck Luck. Today we are going to go over our exposures. We're going to go over just kind of over time, what we've been drafting more, what we've been drafting less, where ADP has gone crazy. I think I talk about it almost every show. One or two players that have gone from 95 to 30. We're going to go through it all. We're going to have some concrete evidence. I'm going to bring in the great Matthew Moody, shockingly, to go over all this stuff, and no one else. There's no one else I'd rather have. So Matt, welcome back to our show. Really, I don't know why I'm introducing you like a guest, but I had fun with that for a minute.
I mean, we could just steal the established a million bit, and I'm the honored guest every week when Drew Dinkmeyer joins. It makes me chuckle every time. So it's just a shout out to the greats.
Yeah. I do like the cohesiveness of me introing and you closing. And then the one time you asked me to close, I completely fumbled the bag and just like tried to tape it together. But much like my entire setup, I've been piecing stuff together for weeks. Hopefully this is going to be our best one yet. Headphones are at 100%. Case is at 100%. I double checked this time. I didn't just take it to, I plugged it in. Green screen's looking good. Everything's coming together. And the new introduction is I have a Wi-Fi extender. So I hope we don't have any more issues where we're like cutting each other off because we're like off by like a fraction of a second. That's going to be hopefully the next big fix. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
And I've upgraded my surroundings. You can see I got a nice piano. There's some nice natural sunlight at 9 o'clock on the East Coast. No longer in my basement, as they say. No, right. just kidding. I'm in my basement. We have some good stuff in store. Hopefully this shouldn't go for 2.5 hours like the last couple have. So we'll try and get through sort of some of the early stuff quick. I haven't tweeted about it or anything, but if you subscribed to my newsletter, I sent out a new article on Saturday afternoon. So if you're subscribed, check your inbox. If you haven't, I kind of wanted to see just naturally like what the open rate and stuff would be without me like tweeting about it, because frankly I had no idea what to expect when I started this venture, and only 3 newsletters in, like what does it really matter? But I was pleasantly surprised to see that most of the subscribers had opened the email already. So it's just kind of cool. But in any case, that's there. I covered sort of what we went through last week, but further down the draft board. Picks 50 through 100, the players there that I'm fading, and sort of the case for and against them, and basically why I'm fading and what I plan to do about that as I close out my final 70 drafts as we head in toward the season. So again, check that out. Yep. It's the pinned tweet on my Twitter. DJ, I think there's something with our Twitter handles that you normally show on the screen. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Why isn't that should be just showing up? I don't know why. Did I hide it? I don't really know.
If you're watching this,
everything
you probably
was going
know
perfectly.
I'm on Twitter. But hey, it's still going great.
Oh, I found it.
There we go.
It was
right perfect.
There. Yeah, I got rid of it for the. I recorded here too for the. I Edmonton. That's why I'm working. I'm doing Edmonton right after this show. So, we did get some hockey news before we get started. Just a really, really quick thing. I think this is kind of going to tie 2 things together. Number one, Casey DeSmith goes to Vancouver. I mean, Tanner Pearson's really not draftable. 3rd round pick, whatever. So I do think that kind of put the nail in the coffin on who do I take in the 16th round goalie, with Montembeault probably being clearly number 1. He could rise to 15th, whatever. I don't think it's a big deal either way, but that definitely puts him above Kakkonen, Mrazek, and anyone else you may be thinking about there. Any thoughts on Montembeault, which we couldn't draft? Remember, I was looking last time to I was like, oh, could we bet on him to over under saves? About wins, and he wasn't there. So we'll see where that line ends up.
I definitely think it'll be a 50-50 between him and Jake Allen. So I'm not racing to the podium, to get him on my squad. Like, ideally, I have 3 goalies that are better than Sam Montembeault in my queue. That's just the way I prefer to draft personally. But that does really establish the case that you're not getting a total floor outcome from Montembeau, if somehow DeSmith and Allen were 1 and 2 there. So it's just had some safety to the final round
Yep.
projection where he's perfectly fine. If you need a goalie in the last round, I would not just go with 99% of the time. And if you find yourself just not getting to a second or a third goalie, he's perfectly in the mix. And with that trade, sort of noses up above, the Copleys and the Kakanins that I've been mixing in. Elsewhere in the NHL, though, we have some camps opening. Noteworthy stuff out of Arizona and LA. We've covered it in the Discord already, so get in the Morning Skate Discord if you've missed it. But just always nice to see those early line rushes coming through a month before the season starts. Just to make you feel something again. And Arthur Kaliev playing alongside Dubois and Fiala. Chef's kiss, lovely. And Barrett Hayton centering the top line still with Schmaltz and Keller. So that Logan Cooley steam could still come, if he plays there, later on in camp. But for now, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Hayton. Just we've talked about this, but we don't need to talk about those two teams for now.
Yeah, and all of this to say, kind of that the tie together point I was going to make is a lot of times when I get a question, it's like, what do you think of this player? Or like in this team, like, is this an okay player to take? And to me, it's like, if your construction's good and you're using the value, you're using all these different things, like if you're drafting enough teams, I'm really not super player take heavy. Like there's some takes I'll have, and there's some like Blake Wheeler, for example. Like I've kind of stood my ground there, whatever. And that's not even like I actually think I know what I'm like saying here is completely accurate. But the point to all of this is, I really, really think as we draft and as we're getting later in the year, be less like a homer, maybe might be the word, or less, I guess, stuck in your ground. Unless it was Blake Wheeler, of course. On like, this player is bad, because I think ADP is getting pretty efficient, and any guy drafted in the NHL for these lobbies is probably a pretty good player. There's not many guys you're going to be picking that are truly dust without an injury. Anything you want to add to that kind of point? And just kind of like, as things move around, like don't overreact to news to the nth degree either, type of stuff. Just sort of, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think it's fine to have underweight stances on certain players, but it's being flexible. We talked about it last week, where if a guy slips 10 picks past ADP, you're probably just being stubborn if you pass on him, to grab a different player at that same position, just for the purposes of your drafting decision making. There's so many edges. We still load up lobbies, and 2 to 3 to 4, even 5 players sometimes are taking 5 centers, taking 1 goalie. Like there's
only
so
more
many
and more.
Yeah, and ideally that ramps up as we get closer to the season, and the excitement starts to it continues to heighten. But there's just a lot of edges in the lobby that you don't need to put yourself on a limb and say, if this player fails, then my season's over. That, and you can do that. You certainly can. That's a perfectly valid way to play. You're upping your win equity if you're right, but you're leaving yourself a lot of downside. Where you showed it last year, DJ. Like, you can profit from this contest without actually winning it. This year it's much tougher, of course, but by just being a strong sort of structural player, you can do very well without needing insane player stances. So
and we have had some player stances. Oh, sorry, I was going to transition us into exactly what we're going to talk about. Were you about to do it as well?
No, you bet. On the same page.
We've made some player stances. We've already sort of gotten ahead of some curves. We may have accidentally thought we were getting ahead of a curve that we weren't getting ahead of. And I'm ready to pull it up as soon as you share it again, because you had shared it before we started and then took it away. We're going to go over our kind of, I'm at 97 and you're at 80. Are you at 80? I don't remember your exact number now.
I'm at like 80. I have 80 in my, that I'm going to share is 80 drafts. I have like 82 as of now. But basically last week we were negative, the whole Babcock thing came and went, and, just kind of a negative stink. And so now we want to be positive again. And, it's fine to look at, here, who are your highest owned players? Like, okay, cool. Like, that's great. But we've talked a lot about how, DJ, one of DJ's highest owned players is Roman Josi. And Roman Josi goes in, pick 20, and he was getting him at pick 45. So, like, what gives? So I sort of wanted to put a little bit of actual data to that. And so What I am sharing here is basically our top exposures, yes, and you could get that, when we draft, you'll see that on the Underdog tab and whatnot, but also some additional detail around that. So precisely, DJ,
Ooh,
you might want to get rid of our faces
yeah,
for,
yeah, it's
okay,
not
that might be
this, or
visible.
we just which one?
I think the faces is fine actually because I can zoom in a
Okay,
little bit more. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I can zoom in on each. So basically, what we're looking at is a sort order, our top exposures. DJ's on the left, I'm on the right. This little guy is where we're not trying to get lost. And basically, we're just going to go through really very quickly, sort of anything that stands out as far as obviously, it's sorted in order of our exposure to said player. So my highest owned player is Shea Theodore, followed by Marchessault, followed by Boldy. DJ's at Forsberg, Samsonov, Tippett. But where I think this gets interesting is I have listed the current ADP of each player. So, you'll see that Shea Theodore goes at pick 119.9. Next to that, we have where we've drafted the player. So I had, we have our exposure sheets that Underdog can send us via email, the CSVs. I basically, tortured those to spit out, okay, now tell me where we've gotten those players on average. If this were just a draft lobby of just my drafts, what is the ADP on Shea Theodore? And so you see that's about 119. So when you compare the two via what we call ADP value, just sort of where have you been getting him versus where does he go now? There's not much value there. It's slightly negative, but pick 119, pick 120, it's about on average. Next to that, in this little sparkline cell here, I have over time, where have you been drafting? When have you been drafting this player? So, for instance, you can see here going from left to right. In the first week since this contest opened, I was getting a ton of Shea Theodore. Over time, that's kind of dwindled. And so I'll start things off and basically say the reason for that is I thought that Shea Theodore was going to rise like a rocket when I realized that, like, oh crap, like this dude is top five in shots per 60. He was just on the power play, smash in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But people, rightly so, honestly, do realize that he's a bit of a one-trick pony in fantasy circles. He doesn't really hit. He's not going to block a ton of shots. So you're really betting on an offensive explosion for him to be a league winner. And of course that can happen, but basically the field didn't follow me. So I was like, all right, well, let's put the brakes on a bit. And don't worry, I still take Shea Theodore when he drops to me. I still have 40%, but it's not quite the 75% that it was in the first week of this contest. And so that's just one example. You can see all the way down the board like where certain players of ours have been going. So I guess let's start on the left side, DJ, because you have gotten some pretty extreme values on all of your top players here. So I just want to say, down to Marty Nachas, kudos to you for your first 8 players. I don't know if you're driving ADP here or if you're just too sharp and following the winds
yeah.
before they
I mean,
blow. But who's your favorite player of this sort of group of 8 that you've gotten extreme value on and that you've been drafting very heavily across your drafts?
yeah, it's definitely William Nylander. That one just seemed like the biggest insane beginning value that existed. And it was like me and 2 other players. I'm sure one of them at least is probably in here watching. And it was just who's gonna do it first. And
Mhm.
and for a while there, it was like you're like if I could just get one more, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I think I mentioned he started way, way, way later. Um, for a while it was Yossi, but I kind of still been drafting him as you're showing there a little bit still, just
Mhm.
sort of like when I get him at the turn and whatnot. So it's just not quite as insane as it once was. And then I think finally Cole Caulfield, those would probably be my top 3 where it's like I really think that for some reason people just weren't quite weighting the potential of Cole Caulfield correctly. He didn't play every game last year. Underdog seemed to just not really have a efficient ADP at all. I think there's clearly just like you can make such an
Yeah.
easy case for the 2 Flyers players that like they get in bad graces or they get moved to a team that doesn't use them in a similar capacity or like whatever. I'm not really worried about Caulfield, Nylander, Yossi.
So close here. All right. So yeah, what it's interesting about Caulfield is he more so than the Nylander and Yossi that you mentioned. You've gotten extreme value on him, and most of that came from your early exposure to Caulfield.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can see, like,
there's been some
obviously.
hype around him outside of like just
Mhm.
us. I mean, not that we
Yeah,
really drive the market as much as we probably think, but I mean, there's I know Matt Larkin, I think was one that's like, could Caulfield score 50? Like, could he win the
huh,
Richard? Like, I know
interesting.
he was tweeting
Yeah.
about that, and I was like, shut up, man. I'm trying to take him here. Like, stop it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I'm super like I think quote tweeted it actually. It was like, I'm super duper high on Caulfield, and like, there's no way he's winning the Richard, but like. I do think
yeah.
others in the are kind of realizing like, man, if this guy takes a small step forward, plays 82 games, you're talking about a 45 goal scorer potentially. Like that, the shot's insane. So yeah,
Yeah. So after that, we get into some interesting trends in that you look at my values, and I'm not super high on anyone who's like who I'm getting at quote unquote poor value. So like Kucherov, Sorokin, they're like a couple spots ahead of ADP when I tend to take them. Rana's a last round guy. Don't really care. What I find interesting is that the Marty Nachas, Brent Burns. Most of this comes from your early drafting, so obviously things may have changed. But tell me, like, sort of, you've gotten Nachas well ahead of where he currently goes. Same with Brent Burns. Have you sort of like cooled off on these two players, and you're probably going to see that exposure drop? Do you think you're going to sort of pick back up on those guys now that ADP has fallen? Like, what is your plan with these Carolina fellas here?
yeah. I think I was just probably wrong on Burns early on. It just seemed like a player that was way too far down the line. You kind of, get caught up in the I still don't have a defenseman, and that was sort of, like we obviously have talked about it nauseum, like a bit of strategy waiting on defense.
Mhm.
And he kind of felt like, okay, the last dance partner at the table as far as elite players go. Could he come back and perform at the same level? Yes, I'm much more concerned that it won't happen. Um, you hear interviews and players talk about Brent Burns, oh, what amazing shape he's in, one of the best shots from the point, yada yada. But like, guy's getting old. Um, and there is a lot of very good defensemen in Carolina, as I went over on the preview. Natras, I'm not going to stop drafting. I do think that he is probably one of the best late round centers that exist on the board. He is like a perfect, I think, number two. Um, he had pretty good rates last year. Like, I don't know what it is exactly, other than like maybe people just inherently think, oh, he's the second center on this team. Like, he's not, but like, I think he's probably going to play just as much as Aho. He's going to be on the top power play. He kind of cemented himself in that role, and he's an incredibly young player. And he's been around for a few years, but like, what is he, 23, 24? Like, how old is Marty Necas, honestly?
Yeah,
You know,
actually, I don't think
Mar-
he's 24.
I don't think he's that old either. Like, what is he, 20, whatever, right? 24. He's 24.
Yeah, he is.
So
Okay, cool.
just kind of coming into his prime. And, if he's with Sveshnikov, if he's not with Sveshnikov, whatever they do, like, I still think he drives the boat for his line. So I think he's only dropped because centers dropped, but I don't think he should have dropped as far as he has.
Okay, yeah, and totally fair. Just a couple players that stood out. Beyond that, I think interesting. Obviously, Lucas Raymond, it's at the bottom of this list here at only 17.5%. But when you consider that the average player should be on your teams about 8.5% of the time, if you're just clicking buttons at random, of course, that's a pretty hefty exposure. And
Yeah.
interestingly, you've
He was,
gotten him, well later in drafts early on than he currently goes now. Um, you haven't taken much of him in the recent weeks, as you can see here on the right. You have a little bit the last handful of weeks, but really this was mostly early on. You were drafting Lucas Raymond. Any sort of different thoughts on Detroit based on that, or
well,
anything you want to say about Raymond beyond what we
yeah.
know?
He didn't have an initial ADP, so he was like a last round pick to start. About shown by the 152. So yeah, I mean, I think
Mhm.
that there's still a ton of talent, a very, very young player, just kind of the right profile. Just we didn't see the shooting volume, but if he is with DeBrincat and Larkin, he obviously gets a bit of a boost. I'm not very high on this Detroit team compared to others. So while people are scooping Larkin and DeBrincat, they're kind of, noticing that Lucas Raymond in a kind of a winger dead zone. I think not many. It's like Tom Wilson, Lucas Raymond, a couple others. It's like I think people are just jumping up and taking him. So I'm just not getting him anymore, which is fine because I think he's efficiently priced now. But he absolutely should not have been ever going undrafted. And like I said, he just didn't have an ADP to start. So I had him, I think it was something like 88% in the first like 18 or whatever. It was an absolutely ridiculous amount, as you can kind of see by the bars there.
Yeah.
I think I missed him in like the first two lobbies. Someone else that's also sharp grabbed him, and I was like, wait a minute. So yeah, the question is, when you're drafting players late, um, you know, it used to be, at least, not really as much anymore. It's like, what is the ceiling of Lucas Raymond? And I would prefer to take a guy that's like 21 years old that showed flashes of dominance before last year than a guy that's like, I guess, Pacioretty or something that's
Yeah, I
like,
get it. He has
yeah.
so he's profiled in his NHL career so far as an offense player, and also in
Mhm.
addition to that, really a usage player in that he's not generating looks for him or his team really, but he's using them. So like if he now gets to play alongside Alex DeBrincat, who Dylan Larkin is a very good player, but DeBrincat's probably a level above that offensively. There could be some a hidden upside there if he keeps the power play one job. Obviously DeBrincat is a threat to that, but I get it. I get the bet. I'm not nearly as high on him, I don't think. But I perfectly understand the upside case for Lucas
16.5%
Raymond.
Matthews.
Uh, yeah, I know.
Sorry, keep
I was
up.
actually surprised to see that I'm higher than on you than
I, well,
probably
yeah,
just
I'm just,
due to.
I,
Yeah, you
I
were
was that
saying though
you're
that
going
you got
to,
Matthews at like 6 or 7, which is interesting because I've
I
gotten
think
him
I
at
had
two
him at,
point seven, and you've gotten him at
let me look.
4.1. So
Well, I'm taking him. I guess I'm done kind of taking him at 2 as much, but I'm kind of hit or miss. If I'll take him or Drysdale at 2,
yeah,
just because like I have so much Matthews, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, he was like started at like 980. Actually, I'm just gonna pull it up really quick. What was his
yeah,
original ADP? I think it was 9. It may have been higher, and it's just like, okay, I picked 7th. I will take Matthews. Like, I don't know, and now
yeah,
he's 2. So, um,
yeah.
again, drafting early can benefit you, but yeah, let's go over your team.
Yeah. You can see that. This little bar here on the right, that's like one of your highest early week players, like Phil Forsberg, Brent Burns, we talked about, and Matthews are sort of like the three guys who you really got a lot of in the first week, as you can see from this column here. And just otherwise, a couple goalies you beat the field on. Obviously, I share the Binnington love, not love. I don't know what's the right word for that. The Binnington upside. I think
Yeah,
the upside
yeah.
case I see for Binnington. The starts seem pretty secure, and the field has really rocketed up his ADP. We move over to my exposures here. Obviously, I'll try and cover the same sort of format, so we're not just talking about every single player here ad nauseum. But of like the top handful of players, you can see that unlike DJ, I haven't really been beating ADP necessarily on these players who I would call quote unquote my guys this year. And of course, that's a bit of a concern because ideally, if I'm saying this guy's a great play, you guys out there are going to agree with me. The field's going to get sharper. ADP is going to get sharper, and basically, what has been sort of given as feedback to me by the field not really adjusting is that maybe that's not right. And so, I've taken that. You can see that based on the feedback, I already talked about the Shea Theodore, how over time I've really trended off my Shea Theodore exposure. Of course, I'm taking him, around ADP when he passes ADP. I'm happy to take him and probably will boost him up maybe even a little bit more toward like the 45% as we close down things here, with training camp updates and we see the Vegas top power play, so on and so forth, just to sort of confirm the things that I believe. So that could still increase, but I'm certainly not gunning for like 100% the way I was early on. Otherwise, I think the Sorokin one's interesting. That's just a guy who, like, he's in that glut of goalies where I don't really care. Like, if I'm taking a guy at the 2-3 turn, or if I'm picking at pick 18 and I have, my star wing and I don't really want to take a Tage Thompson or Pedersen, just, given the ADP environment, I might take Sorokin over a Nylander or a Gensel, like reaching on a wing, because I just think that Sorokin is the best goalie on the board. That is not the case in the field. The field has Shesterkin, and I think Vasilevsky's ahead of him as well. Um, but just a little bit of interest there that really I've been steady on these guys throughout drafting season. We can see that it's not like I've gotten a ton of the guys early and then just stopped taking them. But we move down the list and we see finally the Samsonov, a little bit of steam, but Kemper and Bennington were two guys who I was pounding the table for. Basically from day one, saying like these guys are really good values at their current ADP, and so you can see that when I've gotten these guys, it's 27 spots ahead of his current ADP for Bennington on average. So, now I'm taking him at 110, and that's lowering my average, but, the history matters here as well. And then Darcy Kemper, too. It's just like, I think the workload is locked in. The team isn't terrible. Like, it might not be good, but so I think that's a much more efficient ADP for Kemper at the current moment. Jeff Skinner, I remember being pretty high on very early on. His ADP has moved so to the point where I'm not rushing to take him over players like Johnny Gaudreau, Kevin Fiala. He sort of now sits in that range of like those wingers, whereas before he was in the next tier after. So you can see that I took him a lot early. Then I basically stopped. It's not because I don't like Skinner. It's just that I don't think he's nearly as good a value at this ADP than he was going a full round later, early on. But yeah, Tristan Jarry, another goalie we were early to. Anyone else here stand out to you, DJ, that you want to talk about? Because I feel like most of these guys have come up naturally in conversation at some point.
Yeah, I think we were just early on most goalies. I really do think it was like last year, anyone that drafted goalie in the first round got absolutely smoked. And people may have just like, for some reason, decided that drafting goalies early was wrong. But I think that was the wrong takeaway. Like, yeah, no, we were very early on goalies. I do want to kind of make a point to Sorokin. I think it's kind of like this, the Islanders aren't as good as they once were mentality. That's kind of boosting up the others around him, which first off, I mean, I think they're still at least a bubble playoff team, but I mean, what, just because they were what 10, I think I just looked it up. Yeah, 10th at 5-on-5 and all strengths as far as Corsi against per 60. But doesn't that help Sorokin? Maybe like he's going to see more volume, even if his peak weeks are going to be higher. His values might not be as bad if he does struggle or if the team struggles to win, just because he'll still see a lot of volume. So the Islanders being more fun could help him. Obviously, if they completely bottom out or something goes dramatically wrong, I guess the floor on Sorokin could be a little bit lower. But I kind of I agree. Like I take him over everyone but Shesterkin. And I think they're pretty close. I don't think it's that far off. So I do think that's an important note. But if people want to keep letting me get him in the middle of the second round or whatever, I'll keep taking him. Other than that, yeah, I don't really have anything. I think everything's pretty good. I wish I got a little more boldly earlier. Just again, kind of in that range where he was going. It just he's risen quite a bit. And it's been tougher and tougher. People, especially like the Kaprizov drafters, are just kind of grabbing him. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. Nothing I really noticed here that
All
I
right.
think everything's pretty good. Yeah.
Cool. Let's so Malik has one comment. Unfortunately, I don't I'll need to think about how to even answer that question if I want to put in the effort to answer that one specific question. I would urge Billy Jones, if you're out there, that's a question that maybe you could answer with my data here. Who knows? I'm not sure what exactly you have cooked up, but if you're listening, what's up? And two, maybe that's the sort of thing that your more advanced powers can delve into.
I mean,
I will say, based on
yeah,
feel,
they say
I would guess maybe if I've taken them 38 times, maybe twice, they're my first goalie. I'm very much getting ahead of pretty much all of the elite goalies. So
yeah.
if we
totally
quickly go here and just filter on what's the best way to do this?
While you're doing that, it's like if it is, that isn't a good thing. It might be. It might have happened once or twice, but you don't want that to ever happen. If your first goalie get is Kemper or Bennington, you're probably getting pretty far behind on goalie, which you should not. So my suggestion
Yeah.
would be to never have that happen. And if it happens once or twice in the entirety of drafting, it is what it is. But don't get buried by the goalie avalanche. You may just end up nuking $10.
Yeah. This is great. Yeah, this is wonderful television here. I don't even know
I don't
if
really
I
know what
can.
you wanted to do exactly, but
I wanted to
I'm
filter
sure.
just on the goalie position, but it's not part of this table, so I
Hmm,
can't really filter on it. It's a big old disaster. So I'm just taking L's in these streets. But
yeah.
let's jump. Do you want to jump into a draft now? Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just
All right,
present. I'll share
here.
where is it?
Let me.
Window. Oh, you know what? Hold on. I guess gotta change one thing here real quick. I don't have the second screen up. I'm gonna share the entire screen too and show because yeah, Billy Jones, I guess maybe is in here. I don't know, he hasn't commented. He did a couple things for me, just wanted to kind of show it off. Um 9 to 12. Yeah, well let's jump in while I show this off.
Oh,
That's a good idea.
shoot. Okay.
Um
All right. Are you
I'm
joining?
just gonna jump in on my yeah, I'm gonna jump in on my phone so then I do lobby NHL.
All right. Better hurry. Better hurry.
And I clicked it,
Uh-oh.
clicked it. Oh,
Okay.
I was in. I'm in.
Okay.
Okay. Anyways, though, he just first off wanted to show Influencer 101 is not completely real, but pretty good 1 through 4. If I do say so myself. A lot of 6 and 7s for me so far, but alas, the next thing, which I'm dragging over, and I'm guessing you can see, he did a nice little chart for me here, kind of showing some of my biggest, values sorted by the pick number this time.
Well, this is
So
your top team. So this is one team of yours.
is he really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Top current value team. What do you think that means?
oh my god. Yeah, I really honestly, I didn't even realize that. I thought that
I
was just
mean,
like I was wondering
the
the
English
players that we
language is
picked up,
difficult.
but I picked a lot of these players for the cover just for this reason. Yeah, I can't read. Yep.
No, I know.
Team value gained at current ADP. So just kind of showing. Yeah, you talk. I'm sorry. I'm focusing on like 8 things at once right now, and the draft is legitimately starting.
I
You're 5, and
don't-
I'm 12. Um,
wait, you told me to
yeah,
talk. Wait, what?
you're right. Let me just pull up the freaking underdog.
Anyway,
I
my
can't do
top
2 things at
exposure
once.
goalies. I showed the top 5. After that, Carter Hart, UC Saros, Georgiev, Ottinger, all of those guys above 12%. So like Vasilevsky 10%. I'm above field on basically every elite goalie you can possibly imagine. Besides Hellebuck, read last week's newsletter to hear my argument there, or watch last week's show. But yeah, that's really the gist of it. I'm not getting Kemper or Bennington as my last goalie unless something dramatic has happened. All right, I have number
You're on the clock.
5. I will take David Pastrnak. I don't think Kachuk is any better than Pastrnak, and I've considered Rantanen at 6 over Kachuk, and we'll probably start taking that. But yeah, that's a pretty easy draft slot. When one of those centers doesn't fall to me at 5, Pastrnak I think is the best wing in fantasy.
And boom down.
Yeah. So DJ,
Okay.
you have the 12-13. You have the turn at the back of the first round. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on getting quote unquote unique with your picks? Like, are you a guy who is willing to take, for instance, a Brady Kachuk and then reach for like a Willie Nylander or like, something a bit more unique? Or are you very much like, I think that the top, 15 players are the best players. So I'm just going to mix from that group at the 12-13 turn?
I guess I could be talked into it, but I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, it's probably an interesting point. Honestly, I haven't really thought about it a ton of like reaching a little bit. This, yeah, I mean, let's see who's here. Well, I'm gonna take Kaprizov for sure. I'm way under on him, and he slips a few past ADP. So that's a no doubter for me. Yeah, I haven't really considered doing something where it's like Kucherov or Brady and Nylander, but I could very easily be convinced. But I think in this situation, I'm just going to take the Russians, Kaprizov and Ovechkin. Um, Hard to pass up the value on Kaprizov, and I'll just run winger here. Hard to beat those two. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
for
it is
sure.
Nylander or Connor though. I could see that. Not reaching to get Timo, just kind of letting um your Hughes drafter do that turn if they'd like to, letting the Stutzel, kind of like the normal pairings go. But I feel like Kaprizov and Ovechkin's already unique. Like why force something you don't have to?
For sure. Yeah, I did not expect Kaprizov to fall to you at 12. But I've thought about it
0%.
because if you're asking me like, all right, Kucherov, I think he's the 12th pick pretty easily. But like between you look here, Ovechkin, Makar, Stutzla, Marner, Cage, like, am I really afraid of any of those guys being the guy you had to have at the front of the second round? To me, the answer is really no. So I've sort of been torn between like, do I reach a little bit for a Nylander or a Connor and almost like guarantee a unique 1-2 build, that sort of idea. Um, so like this, I have Kyle Connor here at pick 20 at the
Yeah.
so
Honestly,
I'll
I've been
just take
drafting
him.
so many Russians. I don't even mean to. Honestly, I didn't even really think about. I guess they are both Russian. I pointed that out, but I really like every stream. I feel like it's like just the all Russia roster every time. I don't really plan on it. I guess they do like conceivably have this feeling of like they shoot more, but um, yeah, I definitely don't think about where they're from when I'm drafting. But yeah, this one's filled instantly. We'll definitely do one after. And Willie isn't here. All right, yeah, I'm sorry. I did look at them a couple of times, but when I originally looked at the things you sent me, I was in the middle of like 8 drafts. I was like doing like 4 or 5 because I'm gonna probably max the stupid dog bowl. I mean, Matt, it's freaking Florida Panthers are home that weekend too. So it's a free
Oh,
trip to see the Florida Panthers
ooh.
play. I mean, I gotta go see Reinhardt.
I mean, yeah. Well, I already did. I went last year. I bought a Reinhardt jersey. I did the whole
I'm
thing, man.
mad because I really wanted that exact jersey very badly, but I will
Yeah.
definitely buy a jersey too if I go.
Or you
Um,
could buy you
but
could
yeah,
buy a
no. So
Montour jersey.
I mean, that's a really good call. I actually might buy a Montour jersey. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I really want to win a ticket though. Last week I was busy at a music festival and I wanted to start drafting. I did one team, but I was just like not having a lot of time. Basically every day I was heading out and tired and just like, yeah, you're on the clock here. I feel
Uh,
like okay.
I'll
Okay.
take
I was gonna
Saros.
say,
I was pondering hard with Elias Pettersson, but
there goes
not.
George.
Yep, and that's really
Matters.
once Georgiev goes, I'm pretty sure that's a dramatic fall off at the goalie position. I made my case
Ooh,
against Hellebuck, and then after that, it's Demko, Olmark, sort of after that. So I'm really happy to get an elite goalie in every draft I'm in.
there's the old Tage, Robertson, Crosby start. Come on, take Bedard. Do it. Bedard's gonna rise because of one preseason game. Like, and I'm super impressed by Bedard. Like, it's nothing against him at all. Like, I thought people with like the dumbest, weirdest takes, they're just like, oh my god, yeah. Well, he beat up on prospects, and I'm like, the best prospects like that he ever played against, all of them at once. Yeah, he still beats up on them. Yeah, it's pretty good. Um, like all of
I
the
mean,
best players from the league he was just in are, more or less in these camps with him and all other
we've
leagues, etc. And there he goes. Wow.
yeah, the Bedard wars have been waging. I it's I don't really know what else to say beyond what I've already said, in that he profiles unlike any prospect we've ever seen since maybe 20-year-old Alex Ovechkin coming into the league. His
Yeah.
shot rates are otherworldly. The offense he generated on a dog shit WHL team, uh, extremely good. His World Juniors production dwarfs that of Connor McDavid at the same age. Not saying he's better than McDavid, but there's a case to be made that he is a better fantasy prospect than McDavid at the same age. And so if Bedard is as good as he I guess, if Bedard hits his ceiling, that ceiling is so much freaking higher than every other center beyond the top four that it's not even funny. Like, I think his ceiling is greater than that of Jack Hughes at his current age. And that's not to say that I think it will happen, but Bedard shot so much as a prospect in the juniors that like he could genuinely be like a 22, 23 I Corsi 4 per 60 guy and be the elite guy in the league in that mark. And do the sort of point production on a bad team where he gets all the power play time and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
I'm not taking him a
I
ton, but it's
yeah.
just so easy to see the bull case.
I would
For
literally, I felt
Bedard.
like I was going to say exactly what you were saying. It was like, I totally agree with every word you just said, and I'm still just not drafting him a ton because it's just hard to justify at that spot when it's like, especially for me, and as TJ kind of points out, I got some pretty nice value there. Like, am I really going to take him over Matt Boldy? Like, I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? I could have, but I don't know. I mean, I got him as late as
Well,
50. Now the hype
you
is getting
actually
crazy.
couldn't have because he went before
Oh,
you,
he
but
went. You're right. He went anyways. So yeah, kind of helped me get Matt Boldy, right? Yeah, I mean, I think my plan, yeah, I mean, 5 of 15. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be underweight on him, and it could cost me, and I know that, but I just don't think it's going to cost me very much. I also understand that if he starts slow and just kind of figures it out pretty quickly, and he does get to his peak, man, those playoff weeks could be incredibly valuable, especially if he doesn't advance super high because, again, just kind of getting used to the league. But I don't know. It just seems it's still to me like you take like a median projection on him. You just take what the sports books are telling you, and you just say, okay, this guy is probably still being overdrafted. And if you want to, make up your own stuff, it's easy to do. It's very easy to do. It's not even made up. Like you're making all the points. I actually was watching it was a video on like NHL Network, which I still have been invited on. So I'm sure they're watching right now, and they're going to invite me next show on fantasy sport or fantasy hockey. But they were talking about Bedard, and the one guy's like, I just can't see him getting up 30 goals. But then just like went into the exact same kind of explanation you went into about how amazing he is. And it's just funny how people are like, there's no way he's going to come in and score 31 goals. But my God, the best shot we've ever seen. It's just really funny how it's just like, you just don't really do it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So there's a big difference, I think, in
Yeah.
the NFL rookie environment because there's no developmental league for the NFL. You're in college, yeah, that's developmental, obviously, but once you get drafted, there's nowhere for you to go. Like, you're basically sink or swim. Versus in the NHL, you get drafted, you can go to college, you can go back to juniors, you can play overseas, of course, if you're a foreign player. Then you come to America, and unless you're one of these top tier prospects, of which there are maybe 2 to 3 in a given year at most, you're probably playing in it at best the AHL. So when you're talking about a rookie from the perspective of like the NFL or sorry, the NHL and like fantasy drafting, you're normally talking about either 2, maybe 3 of the most talented players in that year's draft class, or you're talking about players who are basically the same age as established NHL superstars. Like Arthur Kaliev this year is, he's not quite a rookie because he's played a bunch of games, but he's a really young guy who's 21, 22 that we're expecting to break out. That's not really the same thing as saying like, oh, this is a college football player who got drafted this year, had to sit, third, fourth in line for snaps. Like, it doesn't really work like that. Like, if you're going to make the NHL and be a fantasy producer, you're probably starting on the top, in the top 6. Like, there's not really that much of an earned progression. As TJ grabs Samsonov and Jari at the 5-6 turn. So without doing the actual data analysis, my guess is no. Maybe if you looked at only the top pick every year, maybe they get better as the year goes on. But honestly, that's probably skewed by the fact that McDavid was nuclear for his first 50 or so games as a rookie and then got hurt in this rest of the year. So, like, if you're looking at first 50 games, next 30, you're missing Connor McDavid from the split. So, like, are you really gaining something by doing that on average?
No.
I don't know. So my sense is no. It's just a different dynamic. But that's not a data based assumption.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very easy to watch Connor Bedard and say this guy's going to change quite a bit of, like, I mean, change the league, I guess, McDavid and whatnot. Like, is he, is it going to do that year one? But it's very easy to watch him and say this guy's going to easily break 30 goals. And it's also easy to say he's 18, his team sucks. Everyone's going to talk themselves into the circle on Bedard this season that's in the space. And every projection that you see is going to be kind of, in my opinion, even, and I was talking about the puck luck one, like, it's really, really probably hard to actually get like a perfect depiction of a player of this caliber, no matter what or how much you put into it. Really hard to know. But Matt, you're on the clock here.
Yeah. March or so going
Break
really
on.
threw a wrench in my plans.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Wow. It's got to be number one for you, for Mo, the first timer.
Nope. I had 2.6%, which means I think I have 2. Is that what that means? Yeah, I think that means I have 2. Actually, I don't know if I've updated on this computer in a while what my exposures are. So let me do that quick.
I have been teetering on it a couple, 2-3 times around the same spot. Don't have a defenseman yet, and I think, why not buy him this year? Definitely all categories type of player. Very young, very talented. Team's getting better. It makes so much sense to bite on it this year than last year, where he's going in like the same spot. And I just every time I feel like I'll talk myself off it.
Let me tout both the newsletter and what I linked in there from.
You want to pull it up, or
Billy.
you want to?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. So, all right.
I can just add the same screen if you want. Okay.
You can see the page, right?
I can.
It's nothing. I'm not sharing the actual thing yet. I have so many freaking tabs open.
Always do.
I always do. That's my lot in life. All right. So in here, let me know if I'm on the clock, by the way.
You are. You are.
Holy
crap. You're on the clock. You're on the clock. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I was not looking. You have 8 seconds. 7 seconds.
All right. How about Travis?
It wasn't easy. At least it was an easy pick, because I was looking. I was like, "There's one guy here that's real easy." But
right.
Okay.
And so this is from Billy Jones and the article that he and Nick Knowles. Don't know Nick. I don't know if he's in here or not. But basically, they wrote a pretty interesting article that I linked in my newsletter. That again, you can find if you go to my Twitter profile and subscribe to it. Where basically there were some visuals that I really enjoyed. The basics are of best puck, things that we've known and discussed. But basically looking at sort of production based on blocks and hits versus production based on, goals, assists, shots, because those are the only 5 ways you can score Underdog fantasy points. So what do these defensemen look like, when you sort of break out their production by those measures? We see that on offense, of course, the Carlsons, the Cal McCarrs, the Roman Yossi's, they're elite offensively. What makes Roman Josi so good is that he adds on these defensive numbers, just league average-ish among these defensemen, but still very, very good. Mo Seider's an interesting case because he's right here next to Jacob Trouba. You can get 60 picks later in the draft, pretty much. But Mo Seider is just pummeled with opportunity, and he does not take advantage of it. So if one of these years he decides to become good at offense and like actually score points and not suck, then he is going to rock it up, because guess what? If he's sitting somewhere where my mouse is and like just a league average, like a number one defenseman, he's going to smash in fantasy. So, some of the stats I pulled, that of the 13 players with 250 minutes on the power play, he's dead last in power play points per 60 minutes. He's 13th in the percentage of points that percentage of goals he gets a point on, and he's 12th in shots per 60. So he doesn't do anything with all the opportunity he gets. But if that changes, you're looking at an absolute league winner. So, again. Yeah. Okay. What did you do at the turn here? Carlson and Tippett.
Yeah. So I don't think Tippett was going to get back to you there if you would have liked it or not. But yeah, I mean, Carlson, go with Ovechkin and Tippett to add to my my lot of wingers that are pretty solid. We can just stay on your screen though. You're on the clock here anyways.
All right. I'll take Darcy Kemper.
Easy. Yeah.
2 goalies,
So,
1D.
Yep. Service the audio listener. Let's hear the team.
Perfect. So I have 1 center, Mika Zibanejad, a couple picks after ADP. I have 4 wingers at this point after 8 rounds. Pasternak at the 5th pick, Kyle Connor, Brad Marchand, and Travis Konechny. Pasta and Marchand, obviously a mini stack there. I have Mo Sider at defense, who I was just talking about. And then in goal, I have UC Saros and Darcy Kemper. That is, very much so a typical draft for me, where I take one of these elite goalies, I grab one of the 70 to 100 guys who I really like. And then, sometimes I'll try and use the pinned. Let's see, can I pull it up and drag it to, if I share this now and look at the pinned thing here, Nick in our Discord went through and sort of figured out, round 1, round 2 finals, how many games do each team play in those 1 week sprints. So like there's 2 weeks in each round, of course.
You're up.
So,
You're up.
okay. And so something I'll tend to do is I'll sort of see eyeball, like, okay, Nashville and Washington, like how, when do they play? How, this sort of, okay. Now this is a conundrum that cut me off mid-sentence. If I'm betting on Mo Sider to be good offensively, I kind of need to make the bet on Dylan Larkin too, huh? Kuzmenko, Bertuzzi, like the wings there are awful.
It's gotten ugly. Gotten ugly.
Yeah, I don't feel great about taking a defense there with Mo Sider, so yeah, I'm happy to take Larkin there. As happy as I can be to take Dylan Larkin, I suppose.
We already have a few 3 center teams. I have 0. We're about to get to the turn here, and I will
just
over my team, but
just to
sort of up there.
Yeah, just to visually show what I meant. Like when I take Nashville, we see that in round 2, Nashville's got a pretty weak schedule, 2 games and 3 games. So like even if you're saying Roman Josi plays all the games in that week, he's getting out, he's getting out started by some of these goalies. Obviously like Carolina, you're not expecting Freddie to make all 4 starts, but just the idea of it is if you have Nashville there, does Washington fill in those cracks? Well, actually they kind of do. They have 4 starts each of those weeks, so Kemper could bail me out there. There's not really any position then where I'm like, oh crap, I need a goalie for that given week. So because of that, I don't really care. So I'll just take, a goalie when it makes sense, when a guy I like is around an ADP or something. But sometimes, there'll be a week where it's like, oh crap, like, I have Nashville with 2 games, and then I have, Jari, who maybe has 2 games at the same time or something. And then I'll sort of go out of my way to say, okay, like, are there any teams that have 4 games that week? And say, okay, wow, is that Seattle? Like, okay, I'll make an effort to grab Grubauer a few spots ahead of ADP versus just letting someone fall to me. So that's like a very minor strategy thing. Odds are it doesn't matter because, you're unlikely to make the playoffs anyway. But when you don't really care about goalies, it's also one way to sort of make that decision for you.
Sure.
All right. So,
well, I just went at the turn. I'll give my team a quick read. You're on the clock next. Still 0 centers. I thought about it. I honestly, I wasn't going to take John Carlson. I was going to take one of the centers at the last turn. I didn't really need a second defenseman yet, but everyone went. Tavares, JT Miller, etc. So I ended up doing that. So my team right now is 0 centers, which will not last long. Kaprizov, Ovechkin, Boldly, Tippett, Hagel, Jake DeBrusk, Rasmus Dahlin, John Carlson, Ilya Samsonov, and Tristan Jarry. Matt, back on the clock. 2, 4, 1, 2. What will he do if he just grabbed Lucas Raymond here?
No, I do not plan on drafting any more Detroit players. I will just take the Quinn Hughes ADP value. I don't hate Quinn Hughes. I totally understand why he's not a great fantasy defenseman. But he goes 50 spots after Adam Fox, and like, are you telling me there's that much of a difference between those two as far as like what their upside could look like? I would argue no. So, whatever. Again, the wing really fell off. I have Pasternak, I have Connor, so I'm okay with waiting until later on to grab some of my favorite late round wings and not trying to stress. But yeah, you have an interesting conundrum coming up because with zero centers, you're gonna sort of need to
People, they
fill.
gotta be done. They gotta be done taking them. Everyone has three or two, except for me and the McDavid drafters on the clock right now. There's one more. I don't know. Adios 99, but I feel like I've seen the name. Oh, he has two. Um, who there wasn't one more with one. Oh, GHI Dahora. I don't really know where that's going, but they're in all our drafts, so I'm guessing they're in here too. Yeah, it's a conundrum, but I think I'm gonna be able to survive. Let's see how he brings it
All right.
home.
I do wish you luck. All right. I'm sorry about the
What's the
Zoom.
worst that's
I
gonna
always forget.
happen?
I normally draft zoomed out on my thing
It's okay.
because you can't see
You're
your
on the
D and
clock.
goalies. So yes, I am on the clock.
Yeah.
And look at that. Shea Theodore is just sitting there. Um,
Yep.
you know, whatever. 3D by round 11 is probably not the best, but um, when I feel relatively insecure about Sider, Hughes, Theodore, you can't convince me there's that big of a difference between the
It
next tier of centers and the centers and wings and goalies to really make it matter. So I'll take Shea Theodore happily, 3 spots past ADP.
does feel like you drafted three massive spike week defensemen, though. Like all three of those guys could go otherworldly for a week at any point and score very, very, very high. I do like that just fine, honestly. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is shaping up okay. This is all around. This draft is it's gonna be interesting to see how we finish here. I'm excited to see how cool Smurfer goes Swayman. Okay, that I did not see coming. I was like, what goalie are they gonna take? And they said
yeah.
that one. Um, so I am gonna take. I think I'm gonna take Carter Hart and Verhage. Um, Definitely gonna take Carter Hart. I'm just gonna lock up my third goalie now. Verhage is not my favorite in the world, but volume's really good. Is he gonna repeat the 40 goal season he had last year? Probably not. But did he do enough to maybe cement himself with Matt the Chuck, at least at 5-on-5, if not getting some power play looks? I could go Erickson. I can build. Nah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do Verhage. The ceiling's pretty high. The rates are super high. 42 regular season goals last year, but yeah, I don't know. Not my favorite first center in, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's yeah, I don't really have much for Hagee, but that might be just like a personal thing where I just don't think he's going to be a relied upon guy in Florida. Like they have their horses, and I honestly might just straight up prefer Reinhardt, even though I know that the rates are slightly better for Verhage. I just trust the role more for Samson, and that's really if Verhage's not on the top power play, like yeah, I kind of feel like you're a bit swimming uphill or swimming upstream there to get relevant
I
weeks out
mean,
of him.
yeah, feels like he's been around for a while, but he's only 28, kind of in the prime of his career. It's just like if he had 42 last year without enough power play run to feel ultra comfortable, like what happens if he does end up getting in there? So it's like, the Chuck Reinhardt in the front,
Yeah,
Barkov, they're kind of defenseman lists to start the year, and then you just throw in for Hagee with like maybe they go five forwards. It's like when they start the year at least. So you're on the clock next. You're a little
yeah,
bit light on wing.
I'm guaranteed one of my comfy clicks here, 10 spots
Yep.
past ADP as far as Grubauer and Lehkonen.
That
So
yep. The Lekanen goes and Grubauer it is. I mean I think I asked you not on stream this, but I kind of felt like I was Grubauer over Hart, but I could be convinced either way. I'm pretty 50-50 on it. And I know there's some hesitation to draft Carter Hart with the unknown Team Canada situation, which the only thing there was some players that went like private on social media. Carter Hart was not one of them. So it's like maybe some people feel a little bit better about that now. He was like initially pretty like heavily named as being involved in that situation, but we just don't know if it's going to affect the season at all. But let's take that out of the equation. Hart versus Grubauer. Where you sitting?
I prefer Carter Hart, not considering that.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that's kind of where you were. And I my exposures are a little bit higher on Grubauer, so I don't really mind. mixing in a bit more Carter Hart, kind of the situation oh God bless America. I was gonna take Cousins.
15% Hart. And Grubauer, obviously, I just took him, so I guess it doesn't show on the screen if I'm the one who took him. But I think it was about like 13% Grubauer, a few spots.
Yeah.
One spot after Hart in terms of ADP?
I'm pretty high on him too. Man. Yeah, I was really hoping to get that Cousins pick. Go Cousins Darlene. That could have been fun.
Yeah, that hurts.
Can I take a bet? Can I take a bet on who you're gonna take? You're on the clock now.
Who do you think?
Brock Besser.
That is correct. I will take Brock
Besser. Okay. Okay, cool. Nailed it. Goes well with Quinn Hughes, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I did beat.
Yeah, not even really thinking about that. But maybe
I would have taken him regardless.
I didn't scroll down to take like a Duclair or something. But yeah, really, I'm just drafting guys here that I like. Like at this point, I don't care about ADP. Like, yes, I will, pay more attention to a guy like Eric Sinek, who's 20 spots past ADP to consider, like capping off my 2 center build, but like you're, capping off my 3rd center in the build, like that obviously is a consideration. But otherwise, like, yeah, Ryan Hartman, like if I like, Lafreniere more, then I'll just scroll past it. Like I just don't think it matters in this range. What ADP is. So
well, I mean, I kind of skipped Eric Sinek last time around, but he's going to get all the way back to me. I have Kaprizov and Boldly. I don't really know, not a big fan of adding that 3rd guy, but I guess whatever. This far best ADP, I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to cap it off
you're in an interesting position where you need the center points. So like, it's not like you have a stud who, if Erickson, if Kaprizov and Boldy have great weeks, like even if Eric Sinek isn't the one scoring the goals, like he's probably getting some points, and you just need to piece together some points from the center position. Because I'm
gonna grab Bo.
You're likely to lose center most weeks, but it's just a matter of can you lose center by less than you win. For example, the wing position where you have 3 studs, the D position where you have 2 studs, and the goalie position where you're perfectly fine as well. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was kind of half considering doing a 4-7-2-3 here, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do that.
That is an interesting strategy. I mean, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're talking,
next round. But.
You're taking on the risk of, an injury. Like, if Carlson or Dahlin miss 3 weeks and you have 3D, it probably doesn't really matter that much. But like if you only have 2, like that really could burn you. So it's a matter of sort of weighing like the downside versus the obvious upside that creates. Like come the playoff weeks, like if they're firing on all cylinders and you can just scrape out an extra center worth of scoring, those points could be all the difference between advancing and not advancing in a 2-week sprint. So
I don't blame you I mean, I got some good options here for sure. Definitely a few guys I know you really like. So
Reinhardt or Duclair? Reinhardt, I'll take Duclair. Let's see. Queued up late. I need a center and a wing. We'll see if Reinhardt makes it back to me. Who knows? But there's tons and tons of centers that I'm perfectly fine with, so I'm not that worried about it. You can see I've taken some Pavel Zacha on a Pasternak team. That makes a ton of sense as well for that final center spot, just hoping that, he takes the next step that he has to for Boston to maintain their high position in the league. But a lot of center options.
Mac Wright with the Panarin, Busnevich, still Blake Wheeler, and Evander Kane. I mean, I just don't know how I'm going to beat him.
Wow, yeah, that is quite the squad there.
It's such a close but no cigar team. It almost makes me sad.
Vasi
They went
Sorokin.
double. Yeah, they went double, like, and like with Draisaitl, but it's just like you just needed more at wing. Just didn't need.
Mm,
Honestly, it's just like I really think if they just didn't bite on RNH for the correlation they didn't need to do and went winger there, this team could have been salvaged. It's an
let's see.
interesting build. Yeah, just didn't quite take it all the way home. So Matt, you did not get Reinhardt. You were on in 2 picks, but Mac Wright, I'm begging you to take 2 wingers. Just take 2 wingers. Do it for me. If you're listening to my presence, I want you to take the winger I want. That's how much I'm rooting for you right now. Do it. Oh, disaster.
Uh-oh.
Disaster. Robert Thomas. Kyrou, Thomas,
no.
Busnevich. I mean, you got to bet
Oh.
on St. Louis to score 1 million goals. Oh, no.
I am racing to the podium, making sure no one gets out ahead of me after Kaliev in the last round.
That was smart. That would have been that. There's like 4 guys I'm interested in, and that was one of them. Man, why didn't you just take Vrana? Now I'm actually mad. If he would have taken Vrana, I would have been less mad than if he took Robert Thomas, a guy that refuses to shoot the puck. He's awesome. I mean, assistant captain, cool, like amazing stuff there. Oh God, you were so close.
All right, yeah. Chip gives a great idea. Instead of talking about why the teams that are drafted are good, let's just roast every team.
All right, yeah, I'm down. Let's only be negative. We were too positive early on.
God, yeah, that's right. We overdid it, trying to swing back from last week, only talking bad about every single player on the board because we were going through my fades. So this week we're just gonna start off positive, lean into the negatives, do something a little bit different. So if anyone has any ideas, we're happy to share any roasts that you guys have of each other's teams as well.
I'm gonna do it. 4-7-2-3.
Oh my God.
Kadri slips to me. I'm gonna do it.
Cannot be contained.
What if the 4-7-2-3 was the strategy you needed?
God. I mean, that could be the strategy you need.
Yeah, we're gonna be the only season long best puck podcast to roast your team live on stream. We were with a lot of competition out there for the space, but we're gonna win it today.
That's right. Oh God. Boy. So looking through my late round center options. Oh, sorry. I was just
I was gonna make something. I was gonna say something very stupid, just being stupid. But yeah, there's a lot of good centers, Matt. There's a lot of good centers.
Norris,
pick your poison.
Nelson, Nick Schmaltz is really a Keller only option. Logan Couture, I'm just completely obsessed with. Seth Jarvis, sure. Yeah, that's I guess that's about it. But yeah, so Pavel Zacha is really just yelling my name here. Yeah, Trocheck. Yeah,
why is he lighting up? Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, Barzal. Barzal. I really like this season, but it's so hard for me to think that Barzal is going to outscore Bo Horvat, who goes like 11 spots before him or something on average. That it's like really hard for me to pull the trigger on Barzal, like because the fact that I think if Barzal smashes, it's almost certainly going to be because, Bo Horvat more than likely, but also Brock Nelson too, like because those guys have monster goal scoring seasons and Barzal's like the guy just setting them up having this monster year. So it's just one of those things where like it doesn't really matter because odds are that, Nelson doesn't go in every draft, obviously. But it just feels like the field is getting a better deal. When I get Barzal right, it feels like someone else is getting paid off more for getting Barzal right because Nelson and Horvat just have massive seasons. But when DFS hits, you better believe the Horvat Barzal thing is something I will be banging the drum for early on until we see otherwise.
Barzal is he going to be a winger more, you think, or?
He's almost certainly going to play wing. We only got 1 or 2 games with Horvat in the fold before Barzal got hurt.
Yeah.
But it does seem like Barzal's going to play the wing now with Nelson on the nominal top line and Horvat sort of picking up that second line center role.
Okay, I was just like in my head. Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
JG Pajot and Casey Zizekas are like locked into 3 and 4C, so it's sort of one of those things where like
Yeah.
Barzal's almost certainly going to play wing to make this team work best, and they
Man,
need
that
the
would
help on the
be
wing. So
so much fucking better. Okay, we did get a question
yeah,
here. I'm just going to answer really quickly, and then you can pull up the board or however you want to run through the teams. Would I rather have only 2 defensemen or 2 goalies? I mean, obviously, that's very specific to how the draft went. Like, I think personally, it'd be defensemen for me though. Like, if you said like you took 2 defensemen in the first 4 rounds, or you took 2 goalies in the first 4 rounds, where would you be more likely to not add a third? I think it's probably defense for me, but I could if you did McDavid and you took like Shesterkin and Sorokin at the turn or something because that just fell in your lap and you wanted to try it out once, yeah, that's totally justified to just not grab a third because like if one of those 2 fail in and you took them in the second and third round, you were completely screwed. So
yeah. For me, the answer is definitely I'd rather only take 2 defensemen. Um, I worry because goalie starts are so um formulaic that like betting on a goalie to have a smash season, I think it's just a lot different than a defenseman where like um I think the D can do a lot more to separate you. Versus I think it's much easier to lose the goalie position by just running into an injury or something. So not having that third option, I think it's just where I'm very uncomfortable. Like I'd rather only take 2 centers than 2 goalies, to be honest. So
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we can blow it
this
up here.
comment,
Which one?
yeah,
Give me
the
one word.
Wallstrom one.
The Wallstrom one. Oh, it's the last one. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I will be
yeah, that
chasing
would be.
the Wallstrom white whale for the rest of my DFS career and losing every time. So
He is your Taysom Hill, except he's not a quarterback. It is funny
and
how
he
many
doesn't get any
people I feel like,
valuable and he doesn't get
yeah,
any valuable touches. Like Taysom steals them and
right,
just Wallstrom
right,
doesn't. So
yeah. I mean, the Islanders are really just an interesting team, and I know Willie has done the graphic, and I reposted it recently. But you look at like what teams are just like very very easy to obtain a small stack on, and the Islanders are right there, and they're not horrendous. And I feel like they were a lot more fun last year than we're used to. So I'm taking them. I haven't gotten a lot of Lee. Honestly, it feels like every time I'm like, all right, you know what, screw it, I'm taking Anders Lee this time. Someone else just has the idea first. But okay, let's go team by team now. We planned on ending this one like at a reasonable time, and we're already at the hour 12 mark. Thank you for listening. If you're still here, if you're not here, I get it, man. And you're not hearing me anyways. So Matt.
all right. So starting off at the one hole, this person got Connor McDavid and basically thought, how do I take Connor McDavid, draft a perfectly well constructed team as far as roster construction, and absolutely make Moods' eyeballs bleed? And I think he nailed it. So he
Mm-hmm.
starts things off
Yeah.
grabbing Hyman, and he was listed on my top fades. Of course, when you're betting on Connor McDavid, Hyman could be dragged along. And then he grabs Evan Bouchard, and I'm doing front flips and everything else. Then he, first goalie, Linus Olmark. When you really want 40 starts on a team that's going to fall off of a cliff, Linus Olmark at pick 60 or pick 50, I'm sorry, is your guy. Then he grabs 2 wingers from Ottawa who are unlikely to be on the top power play in Drake Batherson and Claude Giroux. Basically, the only guys in the top 100 and ADP who are very unlikely to be on their team's top power play. Claude Giroux, especially, that is just an egregious ADP on Giroux, in my opinion. Josh Morrissey doesn't shoot the puck ever. Probably doesn't have the same season as he did last year with Winnipeg actively trying to lose.
But wait, there's more because he also took Jake Sanderson, who's not going to be on the top power play in Ottawa to go with it. So power play 2 in Ottawa is fully taken now. It's gone.
There you go.
Cannot have it.
There you go.
Okay, back to you. Back to you in the studio.
And yeah, and then when you're like, all right, well, I need some help at wing because I only have one good wing in Jake Gensel. You got to grab Patrick Kane, who's simply not going to play this season. Like it seems very unlikely that he even steps on the ice. So, at least there's a reason Patrick Kane fails, unlike Claude Giroux, where it's like, just the guy kind of sucks now. But a 3-7-3-3 build. Yeah, exactly. Drafted McDavid, didn't pile on the centers, but still just a team that makes my skin crawl, even with Devin Bouchard, which is very hard to do. So well done by Mudcat.
Yeah.
DJ,
Again,
do you want
like
to take
I'm
Chip?
just gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna take a
Okay.
real quick opinion on it. Is again, I'm gonna make this point, and Matt's gonna disagree, and you don't have to agree with what I say here. You just couldn't have taken Bouchard there. Like you needed a winger, and you let one go. Yeah. So I'll get to Chip, who's here. I'm gonna try to look at your screen, but also just look at his team as kind of how it is built. It is a 3-7-3-3. Started with Matthews, Roman Yossi, DeBrincat. I'm very low on DeBrincat. I just went over why I'm betting his under on goals. So thank you for listening. Under 35.5 is what I said, and I stand by it. Went on to continue the winger love with Jeff Skinner. Took Barkov, who will never score in your roster because you have Matthews, and you took Reinhardt later, who are just both better. But congratulations on getting Alex Barkov to be dragged along to maybe a playoff berth because at least you have Matthews. Didn't touch winger again until Arvidsson, Lucas Raymond, Anders Lee, and David Perron, because again, you needed to get some Detroit power play 2 love in there with Raymond and Perron. Montour, a defense to go with Yossi. Honestly, I'll give this a little bit of love. I think that's probably like you're getting Montour to almost pick 100 at this point. Yossi can get something done before Montour comes back, but yeah, that's probably an interesting way of doing it, and then waiting on defense. But in net, you're going to get a combined 52 starts with Vanacek, Bobrovsky, and Copley. As Vanacek will lose the net to Schmid. Copley is a dust ball, and I don't know, maybe Bobrovsky's fine, honestly. Okay, I guess you bet on Florida, but we had to roast your team.
So
it's a good team. It's a good team, honestly.
Two quick things. One, when you can draft 3 backup goalies, you just have to do it. Akira Schmid and Spencer Knight coming for those jobs. Obviously, Phoenix Copley's already a backup. And anytime you can bet on 3 wingers whose upside is playing on the line with Dylan Larkin, I think you fucked up. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the idea, Chip Skylark.
No, yeah, but honestly, like it is a good team. I just a little less correlation and a little bit more just taking the best player. And I think this team
sometimes you just got to play the best plays. But sorry, Chipsky, as Pete loves to call you, even though everyone knows Chip Skylark and his shiny teeth. All right, I get Mac right, and of course,
wait, Cole, we gotta stop right there really quick. Does Pete really call him Chipsky? And I just never noticed that. It should definitely be Chip Skylark, because next time please like at me on Twitter next time Pete goes live and you're in there, Chip, because I really want to roast him for that. That pisses me off. All right. I mean, Doug Dimmadome's on every single cover all right, I'm gonna beat myself before I get mad.
All right, I got Mac right. We basically already roasted his team, but he goes the alpha goalie to start, Vasi and Sorokin. He has to grab Artemi Panarin as his top wing. Follows that up later on by taking up Mark Stone and Blake Wheeler. His final wing, Jonathan Drouin. I mean, if you want to take 4 wings and just dump them off of a bridge into the river below, that's one good way to do it. You take a center in Jordan Kyrou, who's going to shoot a ton. You got to balance it out by taking his line mate in Robert Thomas, who will never shoot unless forced to at gunpoint, in which case it'll just be a soft muffin on goal. And you drafted Jake Trouba, who's likely to be suspended for the playoff weeks. So, hopefully McAvoy and Hedman can carry the load there for you. DJ, Sam Olsen, or any thoughts on Mac Wright?
It honestly, with Mac Wright's team, it is just like an exercise in making small blunders over and over again that stab you to death. And getting Draisaitl is a good start. I mean, I know we roast him. I know he was already roasted in the chat. Like, I'm definitely going to be the lowest on Draisaitl as far as a like actual player in the league compared to almost anyone else other than that. And yet, like, if you get the opportunity to draft him 3rd, you take it. And you need to succeed, and he somehow didn't. So we'll move on to Samuelson, who I'm sure drafted a really good team because he's very sharp. McKinnon was the obvious pick. Nylander was an obvious pick. Sorry, I'm like looking at 2 screens at once, and it's Tuck, Kreider. Oh my God, this is gonna be hard to roast. These are just all guys I pick all the time. Ottinger. Okay, well, at least we can say a net. You're probably pretty much dusted. I mean, Gustafsson is. It's like easy to make the argument, but I just think he's like substantially worse in that range than the rest of them. But I think I took both the other, all 3 already went before you. You were pretty much stuck with Gustafsson if you wanted a goalie with any semblance of a peak position. Yeah, other than that, I don't think there's really a player on this roster. I haven't drafted a ton other than Jamie Drysdale, and I'm just losing the being able to roast this team battle here because I would roast Zegras if you didn't take Terry. I would be like, wow, yeah, I had to, but you took Terry. It makes sense. Matt, is there anything you can roast, or am I missing something?
I mean, anytime you can walk, not run into a season with Rorensky, Morgan Riley, and Jamie Drysdale as your defense, like, boy, you are really punting on the position, hoping that there's not a league winner in the defense because those guys ain't it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that. Yeah, that's it. I don't know, but then again, like I just made and in the video about Columbus the case for why Zach Rensky could probably be a top 5 fantasy like defense. But I think in that situation, it's the right call. Although you may have been better off taking one a bit earlier. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna let you move on and actually roast yourself, I guess. Or do you want me to try to roast you?
Hey, the best roast will come from within, I think.
Okay, you got
So
it.
sure, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, anytime you can start off your draft with David Pastrnak and Kyle Connor, you just got to do it. Anytime the next guy off the board is a guy who tries to bite people for fun, maybe your wing position is a little bit weak. So, not too happy about going into round 13 with 4 wings and saying, Brock Besser, you're the guy. Come on down. Not even Vancouver can find a job for you that you can succeed at. So that's not great. I basically completely punted the center position. I said, okay, Zibanejad, you're my horse the entire year because Dylan Larkin sucks and Pablo Zaka's a nobody. I don't know why. That's just what we do. And I took 3 goalies who could easily play for 3 of the 10 worst teams in hockey. I'm not sold on Seattle continuing their success from last year. They shot 1,000,000,000%. They still suck. And yeah, I have goalies from all bad teams. Great times to be moods.
I feel like you definitely took a unique moods approach to this draft. But again, the Pastrnak and Connor start is very, very strong. Other than that, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle to beat any of the teams by the name of DJ Sabres at the very least. The next we have Lake UF. Is that how we're saying? Are we saying it now? Is that right? Or I feel like is
I
this
have
one I always
no
say
idea.
wrong? Okay,
I
cool.
feel
I'm
like
gonna
it's
say it
just
like that.
Layla. Okay, let's
So
just say
starting
Layla,
with
but whatever.
okay, fine. It's Layla. Okay. Then it'd be it doesn't matter. Okay, Layla. So he started off with Matt the Chuck, the obvious first pick. Had to follow it up with Timo Mayer, who was going to get outscored by Victor Arvidsson, as we talked about before. Went on to Kevin Fiala, who could easily be, I don't know. I mean, the top power play is a bit up for grabs. I feel like he's a bit of a fringe take there, but I definitely get it with the rates. Patrick Laine, he's gonna finally figure it out. It's just been a couple, 2-3 years in the making for Patrick Laine. We're gonna put it all together now with Mike. Wait, with Vinny Prothel. That's gonna be the guy to figure him out. We've just been waiting for him all along. After the monster winger run, and I also miss Georgiev in the mix. You waited forever to take a goalie. Instead, you got Eichel, Hintz, and Malkin. Sure, whatever. I guess you need to load up at that position. Marchessault, because Matt was going to definitely take him. So thank you for stealing him from Matt and making Matt feel good. It always makes me feel good to know Matt is sad. So thank you for that one note. Other than that, Tyler Bertuzzi is going to score a combined 10 goals. He's going to miss, I don't even know how many games, and not even sniff a power play 1 role. Goalies, you're going to get.
Well, us, at least Austin Matthews won't be brought to tears when he gets traded at the deadline.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point. Vince Dunn, Luke Hughes, I don't know, whatever, just useless players to go with Pietrangelo and build out a Eichel, Pietrangelo, Marchessault stack only for Shea Theodore to take the power play 1 role. And Marc-Andre Fleury probably ends up getting banished to the Shadow Realm when Wallstead takes his backup job. So hopefully Sam Montembeault can figure it out when Georgiev doesn't play. But as we've learned, Georgiev has to play every single game for that team for them to have a chance. So honestly, the honest takeaway is it's a fun team. You got a lot of value at center. Ruben Hintz slipped 1.5 miles, and I've definitely taken a look at most of these wingers, but it seems like a team that was just value and correlation driven, but it's fine, honestly, in retrospect. But I could roast a few players, so I threw it in the mix.
Okay, Ados 99 here. Also looks like they drafted a 3733 team despite me not knowing their username. So obviously a big missed opportunity there. You could have been the guy that takes 8 centers in this draft. But when we're talking about your draft here, Rantanen, Shesterkin, Elias Pettersson, way past ADP, totally fine. You take Dougie, and then a couple rounds later, you think, man, if only I could get the guy who has as many power play goals in 250 career NHL games as Evan Bouchard had in one postseason last year. I just got to do it and grab Adam Fox because you just got to shore up that D position. You carry it on. JT Miller, Andrei Kuzmenko. Of course, you got to stack up a terrible team in the Pacific. But wait, there's more because you're drafting Elias Lindholm and Andrew Mangiapane, who are almost entirely never going to touch the ice together in Calgary. That is like rule number one of Calgary. Elias Lindholm would be on the top line and the top power play. Mangiapane is almost locked into the third line of Michael Backlund and will never see the top power play. So, that mini stack, just burn it. Who cares? And guess what? You stacked another terrible team in the Pacific Division. So, kudos to you, 8099, for drafting the right type of team, but maybe try drafting better players next time.
Yeah. Waiting till pick 103 for that second winger, even with Mikko Rantanen, even if he, again, repeat last year is just yippity.
I mean, geez, I could have gone on Tom Wilson. Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, I know you didn't even mention
Tom Wilson.
And Connor Brown without McDavid, because I'm sure Connor Brown getting there without McDavid is a very likely scenario. Yeah, it just a better allocation of early draft capital if you're listening. The next one was one that I was hoping I could get one of these teams that is truly pretty egregious. Start out with Jason Robertson. You know what? That's not a bad pick at pick 8. I get it, right? You have him over Kaprizov on your board. That's fine. And from there, it was basically a complete disaster. Tage Thompson. Okay, fine. You know what? You just took Tage Thompson at ADP. Sidney Crosby. Okay, fine. I guess you're going to go Alpha Center. Don't take another one, please. Erik Karlsson, Miro Heiskanen. Okay, fine. You really want to stack up them Alpha stacks. Okay, get to winger. Please get to winger. Please get to winger. Okay, finally, you took Tyler Toffoli as your second winger. Don't let that be your last until Matt Zuccarello. Tavares, because you already have Tage Thompson and Sidney Crosby, so you really needed to get Tavares in there to never, I guess, score, or one of those guys died, and you're already screwed. First goal again was Korpisalo. Second, Devin Levi. Third, Aiden Hill. All three of them, I guess you could argue Korpisalo is not quite as much, but could not see a ton of run in net. Very fringe, but whatever. You know what? You take your bets where you take your bets. So yeah, Scheifele to make a fourth center to just make sure you actually never ever score. Mark Scheifele, if he's scoring over Tage and Crosby and Tavares, oh boy. Just to finish off your winger core again, Robertson, Toffoli, Zuccarello, Bjorkstrand, and Vrana. I believe that's at least 2, if not 3 guys that were definitely not going to be top power play. Bjorkstrand will probably play 11 minutes a night, knowing their coach, and Jacob Vrana, if he lasts an entire season. Also, just I don't think I need to go into much more detail here. It is just a train wreck.
I mean, this guy's just playing 4-dimensional chess here with 4D and 4 centers. So, hey.
This, all right. I honestly, this is the one thing I'll say is I don't even completely despise the Crosby Karlsson situation. I could almost let it go of Tage, Crosby, Robertson, Karlsson, and Heiskanen. But you're never taking a center or defenseman again, and you gotta go 10 wingers at that point. Just it's worth experimenting with that shit, but man, you got it. You can't bring it home with 5 wingers. Okay, back to you.
All right, I got a Ghidorah 19, another name, even though that's a badge I'm not familiar with. So we don't quite have the friends and family draft that we are used to here, but drafting Hughes in the first round. Okay, he has. All right, hey, thanks for keeping me honest. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming back. Anyway, drafting Jack Hughes in the first round because, if you really want to lose center and wing, that's the pick for you. Following that up with Mitch Marner, who you're not saving your wing spot by drafting Mitch Marner, that's for sure. Connor Hellebuyck, my number one fade, the only guy in the elite range of goalies that I'm fading. You got to snap that guy up, of course. Clayton Keller doesn't look like you drafted Nick Schmaltz with him or Barrett Hayton. So, like, what are we even doing here? If Clayton Keller's the 40th overall pick in this draft, I mean, you got to believe his line mates are coming with him like they did last year. So, just tough scenes all around by following that up with Jesper Bratt. Between Bratt and Marner and Keller, like, you're really hurting for shots on goal. Fortunately, you grab Pierre-Luc Dubois, who basically the only thing he can do is take shots on goal. He doesn't really score. He doesn't really do much besides just piss off his coaches and get traded. But luckily, this guy listened to DJ early on because he drafted both Brent Burns and Marty Nachas. But just really following in DJ's footsteps, Jordan Bennington, the favorite goalie out there. And then lastly, the third center position being Matty Beniers. What are we even doing here? What is Matty Beniers' ceiling? Is it even the floor? I have no idea. Jason Zucker as one of your later wings and Tomas Tatar. Well, Zucker's value come playoff time will probably be for another team. So if you really want a fourth liner for the Boston Bruins, Jason Zucker is your guy. But thanks for showing up, Ghidorah. And I'm sorry to not realize that you were here before. DJ, cool Smurfer.
Yeah. And also, we did get a quick question about Drysdale. And I honestly, I was wondering your take because I don't think I've drafted him yet, but I would. What was your take on Drysdale?
I have a couple shares, but I'm very worried about the chatter coming out about Olin Zellweger potentially making the team. Also, Pavel Mintyukov as well. Both of those guys profile as more of the fantasy power play one type defenseman as prospects. Jamie Drysdale is an awesome prospect. However, he profiles as more of the Victor Hedman type, where he's not going to do a ton for you as far as his rates. It's just a matter of him being that dominant force that you need to sort of get 28, 29 minutes a night, in his prime, of course. That's going to make him fantasy viable. When he's fighting Cam Fowler already for power play one duties, the rates aren't good enough, at least at this point that we've seen, for him to be of high consideration. So I've paused taking him. If we get to camp and it's clear that Zellweger and Mintyukov are not going to make the team, then I think Drysdale is perfectly viable. But if you want to take shots at him, I'm always for taking shots on prospects, but it's burned me in past seasons. So trying to restrain myself on that front this year.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Smurfer got the Brady Stutzel start, followed it up with Sveshnikov, and just, ripping through wingers. Goes with Forsberg, goes with Ehlers, goes with, Stamkos, by the way, just mix in Stamkos, Sergachev, Huberdeau. That's the start. And you're like, okay, a very good wing alpha room here, but like, did they forget goaltenders existed? And they did. Grabbed Sebastian Aho. Now realizing they had no goaltenders, took the 25 starts of Freddie Anderson in a 3-goalie split. Decided they couldn't wait too long. They decided that it was just about time to grab another backup goaltender. And I guess Freddie Anderson's really not a backup, but grabbing a backup goaltender in Jeremy Swayman on the Evs aforementioned collapsing Boston Bruins team to hopefully soak up 10 wins. I already mentioned Aho. Yeah, I mean, really, it starts and ends in net here. Kira Schmid, he absolutely has to take over the net in New Jersey, or this team is not going to come even close in net to hold a stick to any of the McDavid teams. Got to get to goalie faster. I'm not sure if there's really anyone on this team I individually hate. Sveshnikov also might not start the season, which is tough. Scenes. But I guess if you're going to bet on Carolina, you bet on Carolina. Yeah, a lot of players I like on this roster, honestly, Dobson, Anderson, Rasmus Anderson, and Sergachev. But yeah, goaltending is where the row starts and ends with Cool Smurfer. Just not going to have enough there with Anderson, Swayman, and Schmid.
All right, for my final roast, I get Ark Caroli J. I don't recognize that one. But I hope he comes around more in these lobbies because he said, well, who can I get in goal? I can get Stuart Skinner, and then I can get John Gibson, who will be traded for by Edmonton when Stuart Skinner sucks, and we need Gibson to bail out our season. So at least you got one goalie out of the mix there. You drafted 6 wings, Nikita Kucherov, I have no problems with, Johnny Gaudreau, show me your phone, Ricard Raquel, Jamie Benn, who's irrelevant, Brian Rust, because anytime you can relive DJ's Rust Gensel from the playoffs last year. You got to do it with the worst version, Ricard Raquel and Brian Rust. And then Lawson Krause, because, you just need that third liner in Arizona. On defense, of course, you draft 4 of them with Cale Makar, because, if Cale Makar's worth the 14th overall pick, of course you need all of Chris Letang, Tomas Chabot, and Drew Doughty. I really have nothing else to say, because this team is just a masterclass at center as well, because anytime you can draft a 5'10", 18-year-old playing on the worst team in the league, you just got to do it. And Connor Bedard, and surround him with 3 more centers in Braden Point, Nico Heecher, and Joe Pavelski. Yeah, thanks for coming, and I hope to see you again, our Coley J.
Yep. Man, it honestly was so close to being a good team again, too. Just whatever. All right, let me roast my own team here, and then we'll just a quick drafters note from the question we got. So I went alpha winger, which I'm known to do. DJ drafting a normal DJ team with Kaprizov, Ovechkin, got to get all the Russians, Matt Boldley, Owen Tippett. Mixed into there was the only 2 defensemen, Rasmus Dahlin and John Carlson. John Carlson, of course, going to come back and likely bring Ovechkin to like 30 goals as they both age out of relevance. But I put them both together and have only Rasmus Dahlin to carry my entire team. Trusting my Buffalo Sabres has gone great for me in the past, so why not give them one more run? They've only given me joy in the past 12 years. Completely neglecting center, I went on to draft 4 of them who are bad. Carter Verhaeghe, who is not going to be on the top power play. Joel Eriksson, who has had 1 good season in his NHL career of fantasy relevance. I guess you could maybe argue 2, but I won't make that argument myself. Putting 3 Minnesota Wild forwards together, just a great call by me to make sure I get the absolute floor when it's just Kaprizov and no one else with him. Bo Horvat is likely going to be one of the worst contracts in hockey when he does not get anywhere close to the 38 goals of last year in New York. And goaltending is really good though. Samsonov, Jari, and Hart. I mean, that perfect. All my team is going to advance, of course. Go.
Yeah, anytime you can run off a 50% advancement rate last year and win the entire tournament following a strict 3-7-3-3 type mentality when you're drafting, you just got to follow that up with drafting 4 centers, all of whom suck the next year. That's just one easy way to do it. Hopefully with Joel Eriksson, you get points for his Selke votes because, hey, those might come in handy come the playoffs when you're not there.
So yeah, drafters is still there, and I still have been drafting a little. I took the weekend off, of course, like I mentioned. ADPs are kind of a mess. The one note we talked about last time, which I think is still relevant. Number 1, the scoring is different a little bit, but not only is it different a little bit as far as like how the players score, but also the fact that you're not competing against your draft, you're competing against everyone, probably will make correlations a little bit steeper, not an insane amount, but definitely matter a bit more. So getting those alpha stacks a bit more of something I'm focusing on. Defense also 2 are always going to score. So I think defensemen, like I mentioned on the last stream, should get a little bit more of a boost than I gave them in my original try. Other than that, it's very, very deep. Every draft you have is going to feel like you have a perfect team as long as you know what you're doing. And I'm definitely going to be jumping over there a lot more. I will have 30 for sure.
Yes, Chris. Please do follow or please do subscribe to the Moinscape podcast, because the last episode on the podcast app, I actually timestamped each of the sections. And for you, at 40 minutes exactly, we started talking about drafters, that contest and the scoring and everything DJ just summarized. We go pretty in depth on the scoring and how that should impact your strategy versus how we think about it on Underdog. So do check that out though, because it's perfectly timestamped for you. I actually forgot this week to keep track of the timestamps, because I heard Pat Mayo say he had a little pad of paper next to him. I went out and bought a little pad of paper to keep next to me and promptly forgot to do it, because we're all just store brand Pat Mayos over here. So
we need a Tim Andercuss though. So if you want to sign up for the role, please let me know.
DJ, I think that's you.
It literally can't be though, because I've made at least one tangible thing that's come true that wasn't like me reverse cursing. So
you are a Cleveland Browns and Buffalo Sabres fan, and you mix that in with the Minnesota Twins. I
You know
don't
what
know
the
if you're
thing
getting
is
away
that
from
yeah,
this
no,
scot-free.
the first thing I'll say is you're correct. My sports fandom is so bad, but at this point, I just like the Sabres are different for me, but like I just don't even care like about the Browns that much anymore or like the Twins' success. Like I'd so much rather focus on gambling, and like I really think it makes me a little bit better in football when people are like, "This player is so bad," and I'm just like, "They have one bad week or whatever," and I just don't get really like hemmed down and like watching all the games and doing all this garbage. Like I don't really care that much. So um fandom is probably just a curse for me, but I think it's made me better as like a like thinking through how to gamble in general with in any capacity, hopefully. Although yeah, it could be up for debate depending who you ask. But why don't you close us out, Matt? Let's get out of here before I start saying stupid things and actually become Tim Andercross.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, please do follow us. We are on Twitter. I am at Fake Moods. DJ is at DJ Mitchell 94. The podcast is at Morningscape Pod. Please do follow us if you are listening to this on the audio platforms. Please do find DJ's YouTube. That is linked in the description. If you're watching on YouTube or I don't know, can you watch it on Twitter these days? You got to pay for it. I don't know. But if you're watching us on video, please do subscribe to the audio podcast feed
Go
once
to
the regular season starts.
xvideos.com. Xvideos.com. Sorry. Okay.
There we go. Thanks, Elon. But once the season starts, we will not be doing slate breakdowns via YouTube. That'll all be on the podcast feed. So just make sure you're subscribed, and you'll see this come up as an audio format as well. And yes, please do not take offense to us roasting your teams. We think you all did great, and we hope to draft against all of you again next week at 9 o'clock sharp on next Tuesday. So let's see. Last thing, if you have not yet subscribed to my newsletter, please do subscribe to my newsletter. It is linked in the description of wherever you are, and it's also the pinned tweet on my Twitter account. There's lots of fantasy hockey thoughts in there, and quite frankly, I think it's the best in the business. There's not that many fantasy hockey newsletters that I'm aware of, but if you're aware of them, send them my way because I want to make sure I beat them. So that'll do it from us. Thank you all for tuning in and participating. Best of luck as we open up our training camps.